Most people think listening is easy. After all, listening appears passive. Someone speaks. Someone else hears. The conversation continues. Nothing about it seems particularly complicated. Yet experienced therapists often discover something surprising. Genuine listening may be one of the most difficult skills human beings ever learn, because there is a profound difference between listening to understand and waiting for your turn to talk. And once you begin noticing that difference, it becomes difficult to ignore. You start seeing it everywhere, in relationships, at work, around dinner tables, in arguments, in friendships, in families, even inside your own mind. Someone is speaking, yet the listener has already left the conversation. Not physically, mentally. They are preparing advice, preparing a defense, preparing a solution, preparing a story about themselves, preparing their next sentence. The words are still being heard, but the person is no longer being listened to. This distinction may seem small. In reality, it changes everything. Many people assume communication problems occur because individuals disagree with one another. Yet some of the most painful conversations happen when the real problem is not disagreement. The real problem is that neither person feels understood. One person is trying to explain their experience. The other person is trying to respond. The first person wants understanding. The second person wants progress. Neither intention is wrong, but they are not the same thing. This is one of the first lessons many counseling students encounter when they begin learning therapeutic skills. They discover that helping is not always what they assumed it would be. Many people enter helping professions believing their role is to provide answers, to solve problems, to offer guidance, to fix what is broken. Then something unexpected happens. A client sits down, begins talking, and the most helpful thing the therapist can do is listen, not because therapists lack knowledge, not because they are avoiding responsibility, but because understanding often comes before intervention, and understanding requires listening, real listening, the kind of listening that temporarily sets aside the need to be right, the need to be helpful, the need to be impressive, the need to respond. This can be surprisingly difficult, because human beings are constantly interpreting information. As another person speaks, our minds begin working immediately. We compare their experience to our own. We search for patterns. We formulate opinions. We imagine solutions. We predict where the conversation is going. All of this happens automatically. The mind is trying to be useful, trying to prepare, trying to contribute. The problem is that these processes can quietly pull us away from the persons in front of us. Imagine someone says, "I've been feeling overwhelmed lately." A common internal response might sound like this. I know what that's like. Maybe they need a holiday. They should probably exercise more. I wonder if this is similar to what happened to me. I know exactly what to say. Notice what happened. The listener has already shifted focus. The conversation is no longer entirely about understanding the speaker. Part of it has become about the listener. Again, this is not because people are selfish. It is because the human mind naturally moves toward problem-solving and self-reference. Therapists learn to notice this tendency. More importantly, they learn not to follow it immediately. Instead of asking, "What should I say next?" they begin asking, "What is this person's experience actually like?" This question changes the entire direction of attention, because the goal is no longer producing a response. The goal becomes understanding, and understanding often requires curiosity. Curiosity is one of the most underestimated skills in therapy. People frequently imagine therapists possessing special knowledge. And of course, training matters. Theory matters. Experience matters. Yet many experienced therapists will tell you that curiosity remains one of their most valuable tools. Curiosity keeps attention focused on the client rather than the therapist. Curiosity creates openness. Curiosity allows complexity to exist. Most importantly, curiosity helps therapists remain learners rather than experts. Because every client arrives with a world that only they have lived. No amount of theory can completely replace genuine curiosity about another human being. This is one reason therapists often ask questions that seem surprisingly simple. Not because they do not know, because they genuinely want to understand. Imagine a client says, "I don't know why I'm so upset about this." Someone waiting to talk may immediately offer an explanation. Someone listening might become curious. What feels most upsetting about it? What do you think this experience means to you? What stands out most when you think about it? These questions emerge from a desire to understand rather than a desire to answer. And that difference is often felt by the client. People are remarkably sensitive to whether someone is listening for understanding or listening for opportunity to respond. Many have experienced conversations where they felt unheard despite being spoken to for an hour. Others have experienced brief conversations where they felt deeply understood. The difference often has less to do with duration than quality of attention. When people feel listened to, something interesting happens. Defensiveness decreases. Openness increases. The need to prove themselves begins to soften. Psychologists and relationship researchers have long observed the importance of feeling understood within human relationships. Feeling understood contributes to trust, connection, emotional safety, relationship satisfaction. The opposite experience can feel surprisingly painful. Many people know what it is like to finish a conversation and think, "That's not what I meant. They didn't understand me. They were listening to respond." This experience often creates loneliness, not physical loneliness, relational loneliness. The feeling of being unseen even while in the presence of another person. Therapy attempts to create something different, not perfect understanding. Perfect understanding may be impossible, but a sincere effort to understand. This effort alone can be profoundly meaningful. Interestingly, beginning therapists often struggle with listening because they feel pressure to perform. They want to ask good questions, offer valuable insights, demonstrate competence. They worry about saying the wrong thing. Ironically, these concerns can make listening harder. The therapist becomes preoccupied with themselves, their performance, their next response, their anxiety, their competence. Meanwhile, the client continues speaking. Experienced therapists often describe a gradual shift. Over time, they become less concerned with appearing helpful and more concerned with being present. Less focused on saying something impressive, more focused on understanding what is already there. This shift frequently improves listening, not because the therapist becomes passive, because their attention becomes available. The client receives more of it. One of the clearest examples of this can be seen in relationships. Imagine a partner says, "I've been feeling really stressed lately." The immediate response might be, "You should take some time off." Have you tried exercising? Maybe you're just overthinking things. Again, these responses are usually well-intentioned. Yet many people report feeling frustrated when conversations move straight into solutions. Why? Because they often wanted understanding first. A different response might sound like, "It sounds like things have been feeling really heavy." What has been contributing to that stress? Tell me more about what's been happening. Notice that nothing has been solved, yet connection has increased. The speaker feels invited to continue. This is one reason therapists often appear slower than ordinary conversations. They are not rushing toward conclusions. They are gathering understanding. and understanding takes time. Listening also involves tolerating uncertainty. When people wait to talk, uncertainty feels uncomfortable. They want answers. They want direction. They want closure. Listening asks something different. It asks us to remain with not knowing, to remain curious, to allow another person's experience to unfold before deciding what it means. This can be challenging because human beings naturally seek certainty. The mind likes explanations, categories, conclusions. Therapists learn that premature certainty can sometimes block understanding. The first explanation may not be the most accurate one. The obvious story may not be the whole story. The emotion being expressed may not be the deepest emotion present. Listening creates room for discovery. This is particularly important because people are often discovering their own experience as they speak. Many clients do not arrive with fully formed insights. They arrive with confusion, questions, contradictions, emotions. As they talk, they begin making sense of things. A therapist who listens deeply supports that process. A therapist who rushes ahead may accidentally interrupt it. This brings us back to something we explored in the previous video. Silence. Silence and listening are deeply connected because genuine listening often requires moments where the therapist is not preparing the next response, not planning the next intervention, not thinking about what clever thing to say, simply paying attention, simply being present, simply listening. Perhaps this is why some of the most meaningful conversations feel different. Not because extraordinary advice was given, not because profound wisdom appeared, but because somebody felt genuinely heard. They felt that another person was willing to enter their perspective, to understand before evaluating, to listen before responding, to remain curious rather than certain. And maybe that is what people are often searching for when they seek help. Not immediate solutions, not instant answers, not somebody to tell them who they should be, but somebody willing to understand who they already are. Because understanding changes people, not always dramatically, not always immediately, but often in ways that are deeply important. People become more willing to understand themselves, more willing to explore difficult emotions, more willing to examine patterns, more willing to consider new possibilities. The paradox is that this process often begins with something that appears remarkably simple. Listening, real listening, the kind that is not secretly waiting for a turn to speak, the kind that remains curious, patient, attentive, present. And perhaps that is why great therapists often seem less focused on producing the perfect response. They understand that the most powerful part of communication is not always what is said. Sometimes it is the quality of attention being given. And when people experience that attention, something remarkable can happen. For a moment, they stop feeling alone inside their own experience. For a moment, they feel understood. And that feeling can become the foundation for insight, connection, healing, and change. In our next video, we'll explore something that surprises many people when they first encounter therapy. If listening is so important, why don't therapists spend more time giving advice? Why does advice often fail to create the change people are looking for? And why do experienced therapists sometimes avoid giving advice altogether? We'll explore that next. I'll see you there.